What up? What up? A friendly reminder, the sweat goes down every night in a real-life studio the DraftKings has spent a lot of money on. It is almost at full operation here.
Yeah, I don't know what camera to look at. I'm so confused.
Look over here.
Hey,
look over here. So I want you guys to soak it up in all its glory. This is new. We're giving something, a shot here. Our producers were really high on the idea, and I'm enjoying it as well.
Well, the teleprompter's here, so he's
Don't
Emerson.
look at that
Jessie.
one. Not
and
yet.
Tonight we got a fantasy preview for both the Jets and Dolphins, plus who's in good shape after the first round of the British.
I really enjoyed that, Camera. I'll miss you until Monday. But let's get cooking with an 8-game main slate on the diamond. Hello to our panel tonight, DK Live's Julian Edlow and Gary and Thorne. Good to see both of you again. Good. Excellent. Looking at tiers of joy and the meat of this contest, the middle tiers, Tier 2, Jules, 17 hits in his last 10 games. Kesson Hira feels like the easy choice, is he not?
Maybe an easy choice for you, Emerson, but I'm looking elsewhere here. I like Anthony Rendon. I liked him a lot to begin the day, and then we got the pitching change with the Braves. Kyle Wright, this guy's gotten just a few games of action really early in the season, and he was terrible. He had an ERA above 7. He gave up 6 runs to the Mets in his last outing, which was in mid-April. He hasn't been great in AAA since, and he's back up with Julio Teheran pushed back for Atlanta. So Anthony Rendon has been really consistent lately himself. He only had 3 DK points last night, but prior to that, double digits in 3 straight games. I just think that he's the best hitter in the best spot in this tier.
Okay, Gary, where are you going? Because as I mentioned, Keston's just really standing out in this group.
Yeah, he's hot, but I think I have to side with Julian here. Anthony Rendon is someone who I almost think is being disrespected by being a Tier 2 hitter. This guy is a Tier 1 hitter. He's one of the best 5 hitters in all of baseball, in my opinion, and he gets a AAA pitcher tonight in Kyle Wright. Is this going to probably be a popular selection? I would say so. I don't think you're differentiating yourself here with this late swap for the Braves, but I just really don't see another clear option in this tier. Really, the guy I would maybe lean to if I wasn't going with Rendon was Eduardo Escobar. But even Escobar, Davies has struggled with left-handed bats his last 8 starts, but you want Escobar against a left-handed pitcher, not a right-handed pitcher, and you really don't want him at Chase Field. So I just think Rendon is far and away the clear guy to go with.
All right, Tier 3 features Freddie Freeman, Trey Turner, Eddie Rosario, Austin Meadows, Yasiel Puig, and Howie Kendrick. So who's the best option from this group, Garion?
I don't really like this tier, I'll be honest. You've got Freddie Freeman going up against Strasburg, who is death on left-handed hitters away from Nationals Park. He's one of the best road starters in all of baseball. Yasiel Puig's in a nice spot in Cincinnati, but at the same time, Dakota Hudson, the way to attack Hudson has always been left-handed bats, not right-handed bats. His splits are pretty drastic. I would just say out of options. So I'm just going to go with Meadows, I guess. Game 2 of a doubleheader, probably going to have some 26th man action, some taxed bullpen stuff. Maybe the Yankees pen gets a little weak late in that game, and Meadows can take advantage. So I'll just go with that. But again, I'm not really feeling strong about anyone in this tier.
Okay,
Jules.
fair enough. Jules? Oh, did you want to take that one?
Well, it looked like you were busy because you have a new follower now on Twitter.
Wow. Congrats on the follower, Jessie.
All right, thanks, Emerson, you narc. Continue, Julian.
So, this isn't the best tier. But I do think there are a couple of options. We've got guys not even in the lineup in this tier as well, in Rosario and Kendrick. I actually don't love Austin Meadows all that much. Green's been a pretty good opener for the Yankees, and they have some depth in the bullpen. So for me, it really came down to Trey Turner versus Freddie Freeman. And obviously, Turner probably has the most upside, but Freeman has hit Strasburg in his career. He's 18 for 53, 6 doubles, 4 homers. A lot of that production just came earlier in Strasburg's career rather than recently. So I think if you want to differentiate yourself, you can get lower ownership on Freeman, or we can pile on that Rendon play and go with Trey Turner leading off for the Nationals. I mentioned how poor Kyle Wright's been, and now you're kind of working on a mini national stat for yourself.
Hey, Jules, peeping tier 4. I mean, Ramon Laureano here has posted double-digit fantasy points in 7 straight games. So why or why not is he the best option here? Or maybe you think he'll be the popular pick?
Yeah, I mean, Oakland has just been so hot, and we have 3 Oakland hitters in this tier. Now, Matt Chapman is not in the lineup because of an injury, but Matt Olson batting third for Oakland is. So I'm looking at these 2 guys, and in this case, I do agree with you going with the hot hitter. I think Laureano, you just look at his numbers, he's averaging 16.3 DK points over his last 10. He's coming off 28 DK points in that last game, the 10-2 win over Seattle with a home run, a couple of doubles. You go back through his game log, it's ridiculous. He's in double figures. What is it, 8 in a row, 7 in a row now?
Yeah, Laureano, 7 in a row. I mentioned that when I tossed to you here.
Thank you for clarifying that. I wasn't really listening to you.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm going to go with Laureano here.
Garion, is Laureano the clear-cut favorite here, or is there a way to kind of differentiate yourself from the group?
I don't know if it would be differentiating yourself too much because I, like Julian, like you, Emerson, am enjoying this Oakland A's lineup and this recent Oakland A's form. But I just have to go with Matt Olson. Anytime Matt Olson is an option and the Athletics aren't playing in Oakland, you go with Matt Olson. This season he's got a 446 isolated power, a 190 WRC plus playing on the road. He's essentially, from a statistical standpoint, Mike Trout when he doesn't have to hit at the Coliseum. I will take Mike Trout in tier 4 in whatever form that happens to be. And tonight that form is Matt Olson.
All right, finally in tier 5, who's your favorite from this bunch here, Garion?
I'm just going to go with Michael Brantley. I don't think you have to complicate this one too much. There are some decent options in this tier that aren't named Michael Brantley, but look, Matt Harvey, I know his first start against Seattle coming off the IL went fine. He won that game. Cool. Congratulations, Matt Harvey. But left-handed bats have plagued him this season. Really, before he went on the IL, his final 2-3 starts, he was just giving up ridiculous numbers to left-handed bats. And Brantley's been really good so far in July. I wouldn't say one of the premier left-handed hitters in our game, but one of the most consistent left-handed hitters in our game. So I think he provides the floor. Matt Harvey provides the ceiling, and he's just a fantastic play in this group.
Jules, you want to go with the Dark Knight?
Yeah, Garion and I are agreeing a little too much in this segment, but Matt Harvey's first start back was, I'll chalk that up to a fluke. I will continue to pile against the guy we saw at the beginning of the season that was absolutely terrible and hasn't pitched in a couple of months. He's been terrible at home. He's been terrible against Houston. He was terrible just across the board, excluding that first start back in July. So I'm going to go with the volume here that we saw with Matt Harvey being so bad at the beginning of the season and say that his last start was just an outlier. So for me, it's Brantley. He's been averaging double-digit DK points over his last 10 games, and I want to get as much, as many Astros into my lineups as I can because of Harvey.
Jules' least favorite player in Tier 5, not counting Dyson, because he's not even in the lineup here against Milwaukee.
That's a very good job by you to notice that, Emerson.
Yep, well, thanks for listening to me.
X right next to his name, that is what that means.
Yep.
I'm going to go with Travis d'Arnaud here because I just don't his recent production has just put him into this tier, I guess. He's pretty much here because he had 50 DK points. When was it? A few nights ago against the Yankees. And that just kind of vaulted him into this price range, which now has him in this tier, and he doesn't belong here.
Garion, least favorite. Who doesn't belong here?
It's d'Arnaud, but just to be a little different, I wouldn't really be thinking about using Max Kepler tonight either. I know he's batting leadoff. I know he's got tons of pop. But we just have to kind of respect Mike Fiers at this point. I mean, you go back to the start of May, so now a span and a sample of 2.5 months. The only 3 qualified pitchers in baseball with a better ERA than Mike Fiers are Ryu, Scherzer, and Charlie Morton. He's been pitching out of his mind for a prolonged period of time now, and I'm not going to pick on that. So I wouldn't be going towards many Twins tonight.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. We're going to see who our football guys think that who are we looking at?
The Jets.
The fantasy MVP will be right after this break. Don't get thrown off by the superstar names. Let the numbers lead you to the money. Enter the free Hot Wire Blind Fantasy Baseball Draft on DraftKings. create a lineup for the week to take a swing at $5,000 in weekly prizes. In the Hot Wire Effect series on DraftKings, you pick your team based off of the player's stats rather than the famous name. We're hiding players' names so you don't strike out by going with a star. Once you lock your lineup, the player's name will be revealed. It's a new way to draft and a better way to travel. That's why Hotwire lets you book hotels based on what's most important, their stats. Pick your hotel using everything from the neighborhood to the amenities to the customer ratings. You won't know the name of the hotel until after you book, helping you score a 4-star hotel at a 2-star price. Play free every week for your shot at $20,000 in total prizes. So, if you think you can win the numbers game, play the Hotwire Effect series only on DraftKings.
It's good to see all of you again. It's good to see these three football know-it-alls. Jeff, the snack monster Ulrich, Reed T. Fowler, and Julian, angry little bagel boy Edlow. Let's talk about the Jets because we love to make Jeff happy.
Honestly, I'm the snack monster today. I had the cheese sweats earlier.
She has, yes, because she crushed like multiple grilled cheese sandwiches with bacon.
I crushed 2 grilled cheese sandwiches. You also crushed 2 grilled cheese sandwiches.
Nope.
So let's not
Read the
point
prompter.
fingers. Julian, to no one's surprise, DK Live's panel is predicting Le'Veon Bell will be their fantasy MVP this season. You like this? Or do you think someone else will be the man? Nope.
Turn your mic
Can't
on,
hear
you
you.
amateur.
There we go.
Thank you. And action.
Yeah, I'm arguing with the producers. I kept clicking unmute, and then they mute me again, and they're trying to shut me up.
All right,
God,
come on.
everyone,
Make something up.
get
Say
it
something.
together.
All right, Le'Veon Bell. He has to be the choice here. I think Jeff was on when we did the Ravens together, and it was just like, I would love to try and pick somebody but Lamar Jackson, but there's just nobody else in that offense. So when you go down the Jets' depth chart, like Sam Darnold, will he develop? Sure. Is he going to be the fantasy MVP? No. The receivers, Enunwa, Anderson, Jamison Crowder's a nice addition. They're fine, but like Le'Veon Bell is the obvious choice here, even with that season sitting out with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's going to be a huge part of this offense, and for a young quarterback like Sam Darnold, he's going to be looking to check down to Le'Veon Bell when he's in trouble, and Le'Veon Bell is a great receiving back. He's caught a lot of passes with the Steelers in his career, so is Bell going to put forward a classic, season that we saw him in his prime with Pittsburgh? I don't think he's going to be that type of player, but the fantasy MVP on the Jets, absolutely.
Jeff, who you going with? Le'Veon Bell got to be the man here?
Yeah, pretty much has to be, like Julian said. Who else are you really going to take? I guess you could make an argument for Robbie Anderson, he has some wide receiver number 1 skill set. He's just not really in the right situation. But it's going to be Le'Veon Bell for the New York Jets. Now, I will say this. I mean, there's a lot of red flags here if you're drafting him high in your season-long league. Like, I just do not like where he is going, just behind the big 4 or 5 running backs. I think there's a lot of bust potential still. Adam Gase, 3 years with the Dolphins, and 2 of them, his team has been the last team. They've run the fewest plays per game is what I'm trying to get out here. It's not a good thing for fantasy when you have a team or a stud running back on a team that is consistently running the fewest plays in the NFL. It just limits their potential for fantasy. And I think Le'Veon Bell is in a bit of a limited situation here. So I think there's a real cap on his ceiling. Is he still going to get a ton of passes like Julian said? Absolutely. He's going to be the fantasy MVP of the Jets.
Reed.
Yeah, I mean, to echo what these guys are saying, I think they all have valid points. If you just look at Adam Gase, not to reiterate too much, the running backs just haven't really done anything right in his offense in Miami. If you go back to Chicago, Denver, it might be a different story, but then it's also a different type of offense in football. We just look at what he's been able to do, and to what Jeff was mentioning, where you're drafting this guy, I think on volume alone, it's one of those things that might force your hand to draft him before the guys like Todd Gurley, David Johnson, James Conner, Julian's favorite player in fantasy football this season. Like, these guys all have question marks. And so when you just look at the volume, Adam Gase, yes, does scare you. Their running backs hardly get any touchdowns. I think on volume alone, you have to pick him where he's going, which is around pick 8 or 9. You could go wide receiver 1, but I think based on volume, he has to be the MVP.
Hey, Fowler, Jamison Crowder is who the panel believes will be the Jets' LVP, so the most overvalued player in New York. You think this will be the case? Give me the new slot receiver there.
No, this is definitely, I think Ulrich might have submitted these picks for the DK Live panel, or DK panel here, because it's not going to be Crowder. It's always I mean, you just look at this team. I mean, Robbie Anderson is someone that I'm looking at that might have some bust potential. If you just look at what they spent on Crowder, where you're drafting this guy, I don't think that's going to be the case. They spent a lot of money on him. And you look at Adam Gase, for all the faults that he has as an offensive coordinator, what we saw in Miami, the slot receiver does get a lot of production. Jarvis Landry is a better receiver than Jamison Crowder, but that offense saw a ton of production through the slot receiver. Jamison Crowder is not someone that we think is essentially going to be wide receiver one at any stretch of the imagination, but there is some success that we've seen in the past from Adam Gase. So I wouldn't think that Crowder, where he's being drafted, is the LVP.
Okay, Jeff, did you submit this pick?
I would have. This would have been my choice. I guess Reed is part of the Jamison Crowder fan club, and there does seem to be some fantasy analysts or whatever out there really like this guy. I don't see it. He's got like a sub 60% completion rate over the last couple of years. Like, he does not have good hands. He's small. He's good at taking a few bubble screens, but he also fumbles a lot. This is a player who in 3 out of his 4 years has scored 3 or less touchdowns. He had one pop year where he scored 7. The other year it's been 3 or 2. Where's the upside here working in the Jets offense? I don't see it at all. And then add in the fact that Quincy Enunwa is basically like just a way better version of him. No, I don't really see the potential here, and I don't really see what other people see either. So.
Julian, do you see any kind of potential with this guy? I mean, he had mediocre quarterback play there in Washington, but maybe he'll benefit from playing with Darnold?
I think that Crowder is fine. Maybe he'll benefit from playing with Darnold in the sense that Darnold needs to develop, and he'll be looking for that slot option some, just kind of like I said, he'd be checking down to Le'Veon Bell plenty. I think all these Jets receivers are fairly ranked. So I guess that means I don't think that Jamison Crowder will be the LVP. I think the LVP can be one of two places. Number one, it can be the rest of the running back crop, because Le'Veon Bell, even though he may not be a perfect fit in New York, it's not like you look behind him. There are some names that we've used in fantasy in the past: Ty Montgomery, Bilal Powell, Elijah McGuire. Like, all 3 of those guys have been fantasy relevant at certain times, and now they're all playing behind Le'Veon Bell. Like, at least 2 of those guys are going to be completely out of the picture, and one of them is going to be getting very limited touches behind Bell. They should even probably consider using Ty Montgomery, who was originally a receiver, at receiver, because they need help there, and they're all set at running back. And then the other LVP spot for the Jets is tight end, where they just don't have anything. So that's not going to be a very valuable position, because the first 4 weeks of the season, when Chris Herndon is suspended, you might not even see a Jets tight end targeted. And then when he gets back, who knows what kind of player he'll be. And we weren't really expecting anything from him anyway. So just the tight end position as a whole and the backup running backs are going to be the least valuable for me.
All right, and Sam Darnold as the team's breakout player, yay or nay here, Jeff?
Look, I'm not even going to get into this. If you're in a season-long draft and you have the option of going Sam Darnold, Kyler Murray, or Lamar Jackson, please take Kyler Murray. Just please. If you listen to one thing I say, like just avoid Sam Darnold. I already brought up the fact Adam Gase's teams, they run so few plays. That's working against them. He's just also not as good as people think. I think he's more of a limited quarterback. I think he's fine to be a game manager. I don't think he's in a good spot for fantasy at all. So I think he's closer to being the LVP than any kind of breakout.
Reed, what do you think? You want to stay as far away from Sam Darnold as Jeff?
Yeah, Sam Darnold's not going to be the guy, especially with Adam Gase. But I'm going to have to disagree with Julian here, respectfully, of course, not something that he does usually. Is Chris Herndon is going to be the breakout guy in this offense. You just mentioned that the tight end, or excuse me, the receivers don't have any sort of promise, and it's Le'Veon Bell. Who else are you going to throw to? If you just look at Chris Herndon from week 6 on, he was tight end number 9. And you just look at rookies alone, his ADOT was high, his yards per target were high, his catch rate was high. He was on 50% of the pass plays for the offense. Yes, this guy is suspended for the first 2 games, so in drafts, you could essentially get him for free. If you want to use your last pick of the draft to get this guy, if one of your tight ends don't work out, I think it does bring up the case of having insurance or security. With that being said, you're not spending extreme draft capital on Chris Herndon, but I think there is some upside there. This guy is extremely talented, and rookie quarterbacks, their safety valve is the tight end. If it's not Quincy Enunwa, who's that hybrid, and I don't know if they really trust, right? The new regime trusts Quincy Enunwa, because why would you bring in Crowder? It's the same position. I think it's going to be Herndon.
Jules, what do you think?
I think that I want to make sure that I'm in a fantasy football league with Reed. If he's got Jets tight ends breaking out, he's got Kyler Murray as his 19th ranked quarterback. A little spoiler alert there when we do our NFL rankings.
Yeah, you have him 7. You have Kyler Murray 7.
You can just sit around and let Reed.
Unprofessional.
Nobodies, and then we'll just sit back and grab Kyler Murray. But we're not talking about the Arizona Cardinals. We're talking about the Jets. I don't think it's going to be Darnold. Maybe he takes steps forward as an NFL player, becomes a better quarterback. But I don't think he's going to be a breakout fantasy player. And then Herndon, by the way, I think he's suspended 4 games. So that's a quarter of the season. And then, we'll see how he works his way back in. But I would probably take Quincy Enunwa, Jamison Crowder. Like, I know that I said that I thought they were fairly priced.
Yeah, some hard-hitting analysis from Julian, contradicting himself. Really good job. Yeah, listen to the guy with the backwards hat.
I'm saying I'll take them above a guy. I mean, I said Herndon's the MVP, so the LVP. So how would I not say that the receivers are going to be?
Look, the Jets suck.
The Jets suck. I know. Like, let's be honest.
I get it, guys. I get it.
That's the problem here.
We have to do every team. All right,
Yeah,
so man
all right.
up and
so
deal
stop
with
fighting
it.
us on this.
This is ridiculous. All right, so it's going to get even better because guess what, guys? We're going to do the Dolphins next with you later in the program. And Friday British Open Showdown picks, that's next on the rundown right after Pat Mayo delivers some fantasy running back advice. Please listen, Julian.
Would you rather have Damian Williams or would you rather have Josh Jacobs?
Ooh, Damian Williams, although I know I am lower on Damian Williams than other folks. And the reason for it is pretty simple. I like to look at things in terms of range of outcome. I don't want to just expect one outcome because what happens when it doesn't happen is you're usually upset about it. So I want to expect a range of outcomes. And there is, at the high end of his range, the possibility that Damian Williams is the biggest breakout running back this year. He finishes a top 5 guy, double-digit touchdowns, blah, 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 blah. There also is, within that range of outcomes, the possibility that there's a full-blown committee in this backfield. Carlos Hyde gets touches, maybe the young guys, Darwin Thompson, James Williams get touches in the backfield, and Damian Williams ends up being a bit of a disappointment. I think the most likely, though, is somewhere in the middle. So I have him as a front-end RB2. I don't have him as an RB1 like some, but I would prefer him to Josh Jacobs for sure.
Yeah, I have him at number 13 in my running back rankings right now. So I'm with you. I have him at the very high end of running back 2, right around where I have Josh Jacobs, who I actually have one spot below him. So would you rather have Aaron Jones or Josh Jacobs?
Right now, I actually do have, I guess I'm a little bit conservative on Josh Jacobs as well, but I do have Aaron Jones ahead. For me, it's still
I would take Jacobs in this spot. I would gamble on the unknown and the potential 3-down work from. I know it's a new regime in Green Bay, and maybe Aaron Jones is just going to be the guy there. But I think we have enough history with Aaron Rodgers to say that maybe it's not. Maybe it's a Mike McCarthy thing. Maybe it's an Aaron Rodgers thing. I'll say it's maybe a mix of both. That they just don't like to give the ball to the running back that much. And when they did, they were bad last year.
Yeah, but I just think that part is the Mike McCarthy thing. That offense got really vanilla by the end, and it may be just something about that offense because the same exact offense with Ben McAdoo in New York got really vanilla like very quickly as well. So I'm not entirely sure there. And let's be clear, it's close between these guys. There's no doubt about it. But it's that alluring appeal of the upside that we have seen out of Aaron Jones. If we can just, if you could give me like 4 to 6 more touches a game of Aaron Jones, I'm in on that one. So it's close, but I do prefer Jones just slightly.
Fournette or Jacobs?
Fournette for me, yeah. And I know last year he wrecked a lot of fantasy teams, but the potential if he stays on the field, and clearly he's outside of the RB1s for me as well, but if he stays on the field, I mean, you say Zeke is the favorite to lead the league in carries. If you could tell me Leonard Fournette's going to play 16 games, I would say I'll take the over on 280 carries for him because they're going to feed him the rock.
Do we think that he gets involved in the passing game here? And what are the expectations for the Jags this year? Like, is it inconceivable to think that their defense returns to maybe not the elite level of 2 years ago, but somewhere closer to that than it was last year? And just having Nick Foles as quarterback could just significantly improve this offense?
I think it could. Like I said, I'm not necessarily all in on Nick Foles, but I think he's a more capable starting quarterback as he showed. I mean, the dude over each of the last 2 years really bailed out the Eagles down the stretch when Carson Wentz got hurt.
What a day at Royal Portrush. JB freaking Holmes shoots a 66. The hometown kid, Rory McIlroy, takes a 79. A limping and ailing Tiger Woods was just one stroke better. A hole-in-one, check. Oh, and David Duval runs up a 14 on a single hole. But wait, there's more.
DK Live's Jeff Ulrich and Reed Fowler join us now to help analyze Friday's British Open Showdown contest on DraftKings. We all know I'm the real expert, though. Okay, JB Holmes, as Emerson mentioned, with a fantastic first round and atop the leaderboard at 5 under. He's only 6,600 to roster tomorrow. So, Reed, do you do it?
I don't think it's a bad play. I think when you see JB Holmes, you see him pop in these spot starts, right? That, you don't see him putt really, really well. And then all of a sudden he gains 11 strokes, on a single round or in a single tournament. There's some other guys down there. I think Aaron Wise is very intriguing. When you look at where he won his only victory, it wasn't on a links-style course because it was in Texas, but it was the closest thing, right? That's not Pebble, that's not one of these harder courses like Bethpage that we have to a links course. I think him down there is pretty interesting. But JB Holmes at 6,600 is not a bad play because it wasn't only his putting. He hit 80% or 85% or close to it of greens in regulation and fairways hit, and that's what you have to do at the Open. You have to hit fairways. The weather's not going to be as bad, but if you want guys that are going to be around that -5, -6 that can get a few birdies, he's going to be your guy.
Jeff, do you do it?
Yeah. I mean, Reed brings up a good point. There's not that many other options down there, and I mean, the dude was fired today. I mean, led the field in strokes gained off the tee. I mean, he had a pretty good day with his approaches. I mean, it wasn't just a lucky round or anything. It was all going for JB Holmes. So I would still be skeptical that he's going to do this 2 days in a row. I mean, it's JB Holmes. He's one of the most volatile players out there. So I would probably say he's probably a good fade candidate, regardless of what I just said. Brandon Stone is an interesting player down there. Lucas Beauregard, another birdie machine, I think for a one-round play definitely would get my interest. Maybe go up to Lucas Glover, but he's so cheap that I understand if you're just going to go back on JB Holmes because he did play really, really well.
Well, John Rahm, guys, the only reason Jessie is currently in first place in our contest, starting strong, great job, but was in full bogey mode.
I'm
coming
still in
down
first
the
place.
backside.
Still in first place.
Reed and I were like, bogey, Rahm, bogey.
And I was like, I'm still winning.
All right, Jeff, would you play him tomorrow for the high price of $10,000?
Yeah, so you're playing against guys like Reed and Emerson, right? So I mean, it's not.
First off, I average the most points in this league.
It's not that big a deal, right?
Wait, really quick, Jeff, can we address the whiteboard? More like Adam Sknot.
Adam Sknot, yeah, he was Adam Sknot today because he's plus 1,000 or whatever.
Plus 7. I started him after you said earlier in the week he was a good play.
You're
an idiot.
I said he was fine. Wasn't definitely someone
You're a moron.
He does not remember that.
All right, answer John Rahm. Would you roster him for 10K?
Yeah, I would go back to John Rahm. I mean, I know he struggled a little bit on the back nine, but I mean, he's probably getting a little jittery out there. I still think you look at everything. The way John Rahm came in, the way he started, his links pedigree. I mean, this is a good start for John Rahm. He's within the top 5. He's 2 shots off the lead of one player, JB. It's a really good spot. I would definitely put no one off John Rahm. I think he's in a fantastic position to win this tournament.
Okay, Reed, what do you think? I mean, you got Tommy Fleetwood, who's $400 cheaper here, and he's in a better position, right? Or I think they're in the same position.
I'm glad you guys are done with your little side conversation there because as much as I want to disagree with Jeff, he's absolutely right. The 3 bogeys that John Rahm had on the back 9 were the 3 hardest holes. So he didn't really lose that much to the field, and he's still gaining over 10% in fairways and greens against the field. So his ball striking is there. He obviously got a little wiry in some of those wedges, which is kind of what John Rahm does, but he's still around, like Jeff's mentioned, that top 5 range. The guy I'm looking at, and I'll still be on too, is Dustin Johnson. I mean, he played absolutely terrible today, and he's only 6 back. You talk about the weather not being as volatile tomorrow, but still being pretty volatile across the weekend. He's got $9,800. I mean, when do we see Dustin Johnson at double-digit odds? When do we see him at $9,800 in a major? Never. So if that's there, I'm going to take it, even though he's +1. He didn't birdie in the par 5s, and that's not like Dustin Johnson. I think he's going to come out and really score tomorrow.
Yep, 1 over in the first round.
Yeah, pretty good.
DJ. You're welcome. Just clearing that up for everyone watching.
Yeah, thank you so much. Do appreciate that. All right, Rory McIlroy was the favorite entering this event, but absolutely crumbled today, finishing at 8 over par. What are the chances he turns it around on Friday and is actually worth the 10-5 price tag, Reed?
There is no chance he's worth that 10-5 price tag. So I wouldn't roster him, but turning it around to make the weekend, which is kind of what I think he has to do, right, in terms of what that definition is. The cut line is probably going to be around +2 or +3 if I had to guess right now. I don't think it's going to, it might get a little higher than, or a little lower than that, just in terms of what this the Friday might come with the weather. But I mean, he was terrible. He was absolutely terrible. Couldn't hit his irons, couldn't hit anyway, just couldn't make any putts. But we've seen guys like Tommy Fleetwood back in 2017 at their home course shoot a very bad opening round, maybe all the pressure, even though Roy says there is no pressure and he has this new lease on life where his sports psychologist is telling him to just smell the roses. He's going to have to get birdies. He's going to have to get birdies on the par fives. He's going to have to score. So I think he actually does make the weekend because I think that's going to be his MO, that he just doesn't care, and that actually works in his advantage at this spot because he's almost dead last. But 21% of Million Maker lineups have Rory. So a lot of these guys who have him are sweating tomorrow.
All right, what do you think, Jeff?
I'm way less optimistic than Reed about this one. I don't think he's making the cut. Look, this isn't your typical, Rory just started slow. It's +8. And this was like the event. This is the hometown event. This was it. He said this was bigger than like winning the Masters for him playing in this event. And he started +8. Yeah, it's letdown city here. There's so much deflation. Maybe he comes out and shoots a couple under or something. But like for weekend golf, I wouldn't target him. There's so much value down there. Reed mentioned DJ, who I think for a one-round bounce back is an okay candidate. I love Tommy Fleetwood at 9,600. A great start for him. He's in a great position to win this tournament too. You get so much value down there with guys like Cantlay, Kuchar. Definitely don't play Adam Scannott, by the way. But I don't like touching Rory tomorrow. No, I don't think it's going to be that much better.
And do not sleep on David Duval. He's only $6,100 to roster as well. So
thanks David Duval for playing and taking a spot from Martin Keimer, by the way.
Reed said the same thing. Reed said the same thing actually earlier in the when we were hanging out. Cool, guys. We're running tight on time, so we got to go. So that's all for our golf talk today. We'll chase our fave some of tonight's DK Sportsbook baseball bets. That's next.
Hey, I'm Tyrone Azak here with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. According to ESPN, the OKC Thunder have been working with Chris Paul and his reps on finding a new home for the newly acquired 9-time All-Star, but it's looking like there aren't any takers. The 3 years and $124 million remaining on his contract are, of course, a big reason why. Now, there is a real possibility that Paul will play out the season with the Thunder. The team believes there could be more upside in exploring trade scenarios again after December 15th or even the completion of the 2019-2020 season. Players who signed as free agents during the offseason aren't eligible to be included in trade packages until after that December 15th date. GM Sam Presti is more than fine with this scenario. Despite shipping Russell Westbrook and Paul George out of town, the Thunder still have a solid core that includes the likes of Steven Adams and Danilo Gallinari. That's enough to at least be competitive in this Western Conference. CP3 could get the chance to lead the team, mentor their young players, and improve his trade value as the season goes on.
Oh, keep it together. She just, all right, dude. I have a weird birthmark on my leg. She just saw it for the first time.
Nothing.
All right, let's make our way back to baseball. The bet's available on the DK Sportsbook tonight, and we're going to need these two to chase or fade some of them. Julian Edlow and Gary and Thorne.
All right, Julian, the A's are one of the hottest teams in baseball. They've won 6 in a row and 12 of their last 14. You can get plus money on them against the Twins at +116. Chase or fade, Oakland's win streak continues.
Well, I'll fade that whatever happened was that funny because it didn't seem like it was that funny.
You had to be there.
I'll show you next time you're in the office.
Thank you, Emerson. I would appreciate that. I will chase the Oakland A's staying red hot. It's not the easiest of spots. It comes against Kyle Gibson, who's been a really profitable pitcher over the last couple seasons. And the Twins have been one of the best offenses all season long. But if we're looking at what these two teams are doing right now and how hot Mike Fiers is, how hot this Oakland offense is, they're the better team right now with the better pitcher on the mound. So to get them at plus money, yes, that's something I'm interested in.
Garion, are you interested?
Yeah, I'll chase this too. I talked about last segment, the company that Mike Fiers has been keeping the past 2.5 months. I'm at a point where if I see him at plus money, I'm inclined to take plus money. I think it's worth a shot. Like Julian said, the Twins aren't going to roll over. This is a relatively daunting matchup for any starting pitcher. And, Matt Chapman not being in the lineup does, hurt my confidence a little bit. But again, I think at plus money, this is a good chance to take, and these are very good odds.
Hey, Gary, what about the Braves actually home dogs against the Nationals at plus 115? So Chaser Fade ATL takes care of business, extending their lead in the NL East here.
Nah, I got to fade this. Kyle Wright is just not someone I want to invest in with either my time or my money. And look, I mentioned this briefly, but Steven Strasburg, the only times he's really faltered this season have been when he's had to start games in Washington. He gets crushed by left-handed bats at home. He's not at home. Like, the numbers are staggering. He's giving up over 1.7 home runs per 9 at Washington's home ball field. That's down to 0.28 home runs per 9 when he gets to pitch on the road. He's just such a better pitcher when he's not in the nation's capital. So I'm going to put my confidence and my money behind Steven Strasburg tonight.
Jules, I believe their odds changed like right before our show here, so I think the bettors are jumping all over this one.
Well, the odds changed because Julio Teheran got scratched.
Okay.
And was
well, that makes a big difference. I appreciate it.
Dumpster fire of Kyle Wright, but the odds weren't shifted enough. I mean, Washington was still creeping right up to minus 130. And they made this pitching change, and now it's minus 148. That's not enough of a price adjustment to go to Kyle Wright. But what I will say is that this Nationals bullpen tends to struggle. We've seen it all season long, and Atlanta has a very hot bullpen right now. So rather than bet the game here, this is a spot that I would much rather look at the first 5 innings so that I can capitalize on Strasburg and Wright going head-to-head. And I'll take Washington coming out on top of the first 5 innings here, and then I don't have to worry about Washington's poor bullpen coming in facing Atlanta's strong bullpen.
Alrighty, DK Sportsbook has high expectations for the starting pitchers in this Tigers-Indians game, setting Trevor Bauer's strikeout over-under at 8.5 and Matthew Boyd's at 6.5. So Chaser Fade both stay under these marks, Julian.
Yeah, normally it would be kind of silly to chase both of them going under because the odds are that one of them will get it, but I actually will chase this. If you look at Trevor Bauer's game log, we know that he can do this. He's done it in back-to-back games. He had 9 strikeouts against Cincinnati, 11 against Minnesota. He also struck out 12 Kansas City Royals recently. However, you look at those last 2 games, he had them consecutively in June against Detroit. He only struck out 5 and 8, and the 8 strikeouts came in a complete game shutout. So if he can't go over 8.5 in a complete game shutout of the Tigers, I don't know how we would expect him to do it tonight. And then you look at Matthew Boyd, the number is fair as well. He's actually he's struck out 23 batters in his last 2 games. So, taking the under here is kind of going out on an edge, but you also look, he hasn't been pitching that deep into games lately because he's been getting hit harder. 4 innings against the Royals, 6 innings against the Indians, just 5 1/3 against the Chicago White Sox, although he somehow racked up 13 strikeouts in that 5 1/3. If anybody gets it, I'm much more comfortable taking the lower number on Boyd, but I'll actually say both these guys go under.
What are you doing here, Garion?
I'm kind of in the same vein as Julian. I think that if you force me to pick one or the other, I'm far more inclined to say that Matthew Boyd gets there. He's gotten over this number easily in 8 of his last 9 starts. The one time he didn't do it was against Cleveland, but it was still 6 strikeouts. I just think that we're looking at someone who has a 32.1% strikeout rate to both left-handed and right-handed batters. So it really doesn't matter what sort of lineup combinations Cleveland throws at him. He's never necessarily in a bad split when it comes to just picking up strikeouts. I mean, Cleveland is one of the lower strikeout teams in all of baseball. They have one of the lowest chase rates in all of baseball. The Tigers actually have the highest chase rate of any team in July, but 8.5 is a lot of strikeouts. And Trevor Bauer has just been so up and down, so inconsistent so far this season. Maybe if you were giving me plus money to take the over, I'd be a little bit intrigued, but at minus 108, I'm just not that into taking that bet.
All right, guys, we're going to get your Mets and Giants showdown picks to wrap up the show. We'll preview the Dolphins season right after this. I know you're excited about that, Garion, but Panel B, which includes Bagel Boy, shares their thoughts on Russell Westbrook and James Harden teaming up right now.
From a DraftKings perspective, though, I mean, you're talking about two players consistently at the upper echelon of pricing.
Right.
How do you navigate that? I mean, obviously there's going to be a wait and see and the price will fluctuate, but...
Yeah.
No, what are your impressions as to how that'll play out?
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up because that's one of the coolest ways to look at it, especially for us, is there have been, we've gotten used to those stretches over the last 3-4 years where you look up and if they're both hot, Westbrook and Harden could both be $13,000.
And you couldn't afford to fade them.
Right. Stacking them would be tough at times. Hopefully you scatter them on different nights.
It's but more or less they usually were. But the point is,
but there would be times where if one of them's playing and they're on, a 6-7 game triple-double streak, it's like, okay, we start with Harden or you start with Westbrook and you go from there. That just can't happen. There's no way. There's one ball. You can't get that many numbers. I know that's like an old school expression. Like
no, we finally brought a fact to the Panel B podcast. There's one basketball.
There's one basketball in NBA games. So it's just going to be impossible for them to get those numbers. So we're going to have to watch some games and see where their salaries level off. But I will say, given their reputations, I think at the beginning of the season, both of those guys will be good fades because they'll be priced closer to where we have once seen them. And then after 5, 6, 7 games, we'll see what they actually are. Are they is Harden a $11,000 player and Westbrook's a $10,000 player when they both start the season at 12? Or where's it going to wind up being? But both of them are going to have to be priced down from where we've seen them in the past.
Good luck playing that team in Showdown too.
Yeah,
when that comes
but
around,
I think it's going to add
captain one.
It's going to add some entertainment to it. It's similar when you have the Dodgers at Coors Field last year in the NBA. Roster construction just wasn't as fun because it was you had to start with one of those guys because from a raw points perspective, you just weren't getting that production anywhere else. And then you have X whatever the amount of money was much lower, and then you're just finding the value guys. This time at least there's a little bit more decision that'll go into it, and now with all of these duos, that's going to happen a lot. It's going to be back when Boogie and AD were together, and we were trying to figure that out a couple years ago, and ended up they kind of coexisted pretty well.
And now have the chance to do so again.
Yeah, well, Boogie will have to work his way. I don't know. JaVale McGee, quite the bounce back season last year, so it'll take some minutes away. But it'll just be, it will be really interesting to see which of these duos complement each other versus take something away from each other.
Okay, after previewing the Jets earlier in the show, we thought it would idea to see who the studs and duds are going to be, yes, for the Miami Dolphins this season. And here to help, we have Jeff, we have Reed, and then we have that guy once again.
Julian. So the DK Live panel is predicting Kenyon Drake will be Miami's fantasy MVP this season. Thoughts on this, Reed?
Well, first, I think it's rude that we don't include Gary in this segment because this is his team and he'd say none of these guys are fantasy worthy or viable. But maybe a little bit. That's
there
Jeff.
He is. Hey, buddy.
Yeah, but Kenyon Drake actually does present some upside. I know Julian doesn't do any research on football, so he's going to say no. But if you look at what this guy's able to do before really Adam Gase came through and screwed up his career, he was actually pretty decent, right? And if you just look at PPR and where he's going, probably later in the 4th, early 5th round, this guy presents some upside, right? Of the 50 or so targets or 70 targets that he saw, he caught 50 of those, and he had 4 touchdowns. So again, not extremely. It's not going to be your RB1. He's going to be more of an RB2, RB3. I think he does present some upside. I think he's learned a lot from Frank Gore. Frank Gore is obviously gone. Kalen Ballage might get the early down work, but in PPR league, especially because this offense is going to be terrible and this team is going to be down a lot, I think Kenyon Drake does present some upside. So yeah, I think so.
Jules, what do you think?
I think Reed's trying to take a cheap shot at me to try and say that somebody else is going to be the fantasy MVP of the Dolphins when they have nobody on their roster. So my hands are tied here. Like, yeah, Kenyon Drake is the best fantasy player on the Dolphins. I don't really know who else you could even try and make an argument for. What I will say, I guess, is if Reed feels like Kalen Ballage might get early down work, even though Kenyon Drake will still probably be the better fantasy player, that just makes me not very interested in either of them or anybody on this roster. Yeah, I probably in my fantasy drafts will not have any Miami Dolphins on my roster if that helps anyone have any feelings about these players. However, if you're going to scoop somebody up in the later rounds, it's Kenyon Drake because he's the most talented player. He's guaranteed most likely the most touches. So, sure.
Talk to me, Jeff.
I actually am. I'm kind of excited to talk about Kenyon Drake. I think he's one of the most undervalued running backs in the draft. I really do. You look at the talent behind Kenyon Drake, it's not that good. Kalen Ballage is okay. He's not as good a receiver as Kenyon Drake, and I don't think he's as good an early down runner as Kenyon Drake either. I think Kenyon Drake's skill set measures out to close to Alvin Kamara, and you can all laugh at that, but you switch the roles, Kenyon Drake, Alvin Kamara, I think their production would be pretty similar. Look,
wow.
The Patriots saw how good an open field run in Kenyon Drake was. Rob Gronkowski got a taste of it up front last year at the end of that game. This is a very, very skilled running back who's been held back because Adam Gase decided to give Frank Gore all the work. Kenyon Drake caught 53 passes last year in a very limited role. He caught 9 touchdowns, got in the end zone 9 times. I think he's really talented. I think if he gets used properly and Brian Flores decides to actually give the ball to his most talented back, he could be in for a pretty big year. I think he's very undervalued in season long.
I would just say, like, how much of it was Adam Gase, just based on what he was able to do over. He couldn't even beat out Damian Williams. And I know Damian Williams in a Kansas City offense looks really good, but if his talent was just phenomenal, I think you'd be able just on default be able to beat out these guys, and he couldn't.
He got
so
52 passes last year, Reed, so he beat out everyone.
Oh, I agree with you. We got to see.
If he's going to wind up being the 3-down guy, then yeah, he's going to be more valuable than people are giving him credit for because he was sharing that time last year. So I think maybe we need to discover what his role is going to be with these new coaches. But if he's a 3-down guy, yeah, then he'll be a little bit undervalued. In terms of the Alvin Kamara comparison, I don't know if he's quite that electric, but I understand the thought process. If you switch a lot of guys with that role, the featured running back for the Saints, they're going to look a whole lot better. So it's not the worst comparison, I guess.
Well, let's not forget that there's a good possibility he has a new quarterback with Josh Rosen. This is, if he can beat out Ryan Fitzpatrick here.
Fitzmagic, please.
Rosen couldn't cut it, though, his rookie season in Arizona, so he was traded. The panel thinks he's going to be the most overvalued fantasy player in the Dolphins in 2019, the LVP, if you will. I think that'll be the case, Julian?
I don't, that implies that people are expecting
I know.
Josh Rosen to begin with.
We've ran into this multiple times with all of these team previews, which you've been a part of.
In the first place.
So please just answer the question.
I am answering the question. I don't think he has any value to begin with. So how is he going to be the LVP if there's no expectations? Both of the quarterbacks are probably going to stink because the team's not good and they don't have many pass catchers. They don't have a great line. So I guess we don't even know for sure if Josh Rosen is going to start. I guess because they invested in him in that trade, we can feel safe that he will. Fitzmagic will probably come in at some point in time, have one really good game, and everybody will think he's the starter, and then he's going to be terrible again. So let's just say if you're playing any Miami Dolphin quarterbacks in DFS or season long, you are probably in trouble.
Jeff, is he your LVP?
I mean, how can you be overvalued when you're basically everyone's value that is giving you is 0, right? So I don't think it's going to be. I mean, Josh Rosen does anything this year. If he throws for 8 touchdowns, he's probably going to be. People are going to be excited. No, the least valuable player is going to be Devontae Parker. This happens every year. This is the 5th year he's been with the Dolphins. Every year he's been with it. People go into training. Oh, Devontae Parker looks good. He made this great touchdown catch. Guy's terrible. I don't know why people keep talking him up in fantasy. People will find a way to draft Devontae Parker. I think he's going to be the least valuable player for them just because again, people like to put some kind of value tag on him and think he's like some kind of good later round draft pick. Never been good. He keeps getting contracts from the Dolphins for some reason, but no, I would put Devontae Parker here over Josh Rosen.
Reed, you know how terrible this guy was. 13 starts with the Cardinals, scored more than 20 fantasy points just once. Vomit.
Yeah, but that was a terrible team. That was a terrible offense.
It doesn't sound like Miami's much better, listening to you guys.
No, but it's a new regime. I mean, Brian Flores has seen success up close, and so you got to kind of give him benefit of the doubt. And I agree with Jeff here. It's Devontae Parker. It's always going to be Devontae Parker. They were going to trade him before the trade deadline, and then they extended him. 2 years, $10 million. Like that whole situation with Parker, he is the LVP. He's the first receiver going off the board for Miami, which I think is crazy. But I don't think Josh Rosen is as bad as we think. I do think that he has some learning to do, but now he's in his second season with his second offense. And it's going to go one of two ways. Either the Dolphins look at this long-term at the 2020 draft, and they want Tua, one of these guys. And so they just start Rosen as sort of a free space because they didn't give up anything in that trade really to get him. Or they just bring up Fitzpatrick, sling the ball like he has in Tampa Bay, wherever he's been, and just kind of run him into the ground. And if that's the case, I think Devontae Parker may have some wide receiver 4 or 3 numbers more in DFS, not in season long. But it's got to be Devontae Parker as LVP.
All right, you guys have to be quick with this next answer. We're starting to run out of time. But Jeff, Reed, just echoing what you said earlier, that Devontae Parker will be the LVP. So our panel says he's going to be the breakout player. Who do you think the breakout player is going to be?
I mean, again, you're going against 5 years of just complete bust. But, there's a couple guys. If Albert Wilson was healthy, I'd throw it Albert Wilson. I'm going to go to Mike Gesicki, though, who really got put in some bad spots with Adam Gase last year. He's a pretty talented tight end. And they've gotten rid of some of the competition behind him. So I think Mike Gesicki could see a lot more targets this year and be semi-productive.
Reed.
Albert Wilson. He had 2 or 3 double-digit performances. I think he's going to be fantastic this year. He was on pace, if he stayed healthy, for close to 900 yards and 9 touchdowns. I mean, he was absolutely electric. And he did one of his big games against the Bears, who were the #1 defense. So give me Albert Wilson all day.
Jules.
Yeah, the only reason I didn't mention Parker's name in the last segment is because I knew we were talking about him in this segment, and then both of these guys mentioned him. And Devontae Parker is going to be the breakout player every single year, and he never is. So there's no way that I'm going to expect anything out of him this year. In terms of the other receivers, they both kind of remind me of Devontae Parker in ways, and Kenny Stills and Albert Wilson. Kenny Stills can get hype and then catch a couple deep balls one week and disappear for the rest of the season too. I do think Albert Wilson is the best of the 3. So I guess I would lean towards him in terms of the breakout player here.
All right, farewell, gentlemen. Jules, we need you one more time to get those MLB Showdown picks. We're back in a jiffy.
Hey, Tara Azak, and today with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. We've got an MLB Showdown contest tonight as the New York Mets face off with the San Francisco Giants. The Aces are on the hill tonight with Madison Bumgarner taking the ball for the Giants and Noah Syndergaard for the Mets. With the trade deadline approaching, this could be the last time Giants fans see Bumgarner in a San Francisco uniform. The lefty has been the subject of plenty of trade rumors this month and is the biggest name on the block. If he is out the door, Bumgarner is trying to end his tenure on a high note. He has gone 2-0 with a 1.80 ERA in his last 4 starts, striking out 28 in 20 innings. The 29-year-old has never lost to the Mets, going 6-0 with a 2.00 ERA in 8 starts. If the Giants secure another win tonight, trading their ace could be more difficult as they sit just 2.5 games out of a wild card spot. So, there should be plenty of motivation to put Bumgarner in your lineups. He'll cost you $15,300 to captain in tonight's contest.
Last block of the show. We got to make this quick. I am getting my back waxed in 30 minutes.
You should get your mole waxed, too.
Yeah, that's a birthmark, not a mole. It's Baseball Showdown picks with Julian and Gary, and sorry about that, guys. The game we're looking at is a late one. Mets-Giants, 9:45 Eastern Time, first pitch.
So the Giants have been rolling lately, winning 8 of their last 9. They'll put Madison Bumgarner on the mound tonight against Noah Syndergaard. These 2 starters are only $200 apart in this Showdown contest. So does the Giants' recent ability to win games make Mad Bum the better play here, Garion?
I don't know if their recent ability to win makes him the better play. I just think the fact that he's pitched really well since the start of May makes him a better play. Noah Syndergaard, sure, he has upside. He always has upside. But he's had a roller coaster season, and you really just don't know which version of Noah Syndergaard is going to show up on any given night. Where, look, I was dead wrong about Bumgarner coming into this season. I didn't want a piece of him, and really, wouldn't even say it's an adjustment so much, but his cutter velocity has just come back. I don't know how it happened, but it was 85 miles an hour in April, and ever since May 1st, it's up to 88.2, which is the hardest he's thrown in like 5 years. And he's been great ever since that happened, and he's been especially great at Oracle Park, where he's striking out 29% of opponents and has a FIP of 3. So I don't know why has a lower salary than Syndergaard. Doesn't make any sense to me. I would take Bumgarner 100 times out of 100.
Jules, you want to go with Bumgarner too?
Yeah, Garion pretty much covered it all. Bumgarner's been improving of late. He's been 3 DK points better at home versus on the road this season. And I have much less faith in the Mets offense than I do in the Giants right now. Look, this is a showdown slate, so there's only one other place you can go in terms of pitching. And the Giants offense is not somebody that I want to target against right now, and that's what you have to do with Syndergaard. So for me, yeah, I think it's a pretty easy call to go with Bumgarner, particularly with the price, with the salary being cheaper on him.
Jules, which Mets bat do you like the most?
Yeah, I don't necessarily want to spend up that much on Mets bats if I'm going with Syndergaard, so that means that we're going to have to look cheaper here. To be honest, I don't really love any of the Mets bats. We've got a guy like J.D. Davis hitting second in the order. He's a little bit cheaper, I guess. So I guess I would lean there. It's going to be really tough for me to get a Met into my lineup here because I'm going with San Francisco on pitching. So I guess J.D. Davis might have to be the guy for me.
Garion.
Well, you need to get one if you're not using Syndergaard, so you better pick somebody. I think Wilson Ramos, I haven't seen a lineup yet. I'm going to assume Wilson Ramos is in it, though, because he crushes left-handed pitching and generally hits cleanup. At least he has the last couple weeks for the Mets when they face a lefty. And his numbers against southpaws are fantastic. He's got a 4.16 WOBA this season. Really at his price point, too, like $5,200. If you put the captain's pick on Wilson Ramos, you essentially have free reign to do whatever else you want on this slate.
Guess what? Wilson Ramos is not in the lineup.
Oh, God. Okay, well, you know
what?
what?
Really bad. It's really bad.
That's pretty bad. But I will say they still have a lot of hitters who are in nice spots. I mean, look at Todd Frazier. Todd Frazier is someone who has struggled immensely whenever he sees a right-handed pitcher, but his numbers are fantastic against lefties. I think in 71 plate appearances, he has a 4.10 WOBA. His WRC plus is up over 160. Again, it just seems like every Mets player who has really good splits against lefties is strangely inexpensive tonight. So there's a lot of guys to choose from.
All right, on the flip side, which Giants bat do you like, Garion?
I think Pablo Sandoval is kind of an interesting play. If you look at Syndergaard's splits, you would think that you wouldn't want to use left-handed bats because he's been pretty effective. He's actually got reverse splits, and he struggled more with righties this season. A big reason for that is his changeup usage fluctuates so heavily from lefties to righties. He uses his changeup about 38% of the time when he sees a left-handed bat. Pablo Sandoval has crushed right-handed changeups so far this season. He's got a 4.24 ISO against them. So if that's going to be Syndergaard's strategy, which it has been all season long, I think Pablo's in a pretty good spot.
Jules, who are you going with?
Yeah, I like Sandoval a lot. He's 7,400 and hitting third. I'm just going to spend a couple more bucks and go up to 7,600 and take a lefty in Brandon Belt, who's hitting leadoff tonight. I just think it's a good spot. You get him at the top of the order. You get him in the opposite hand matchup. Belt's averaging 8 DK points over his last 10. He's been kind of hot lately, double digits in, 3 of his last 5, 13 last night. I know some of those numbers are inflated by cores, but some of them are also inflated just because the Giants have been really good lately. So I'll take Belt in the leadoff spot.
Guys, real quick, before we get your slate approved, who are you going to captain tonight, Julian?
Give me Mad Bum, and I'll work from there. I'm definitely the most confident in him.
Okay, we got some time here, 90 seconds. Gary, and what about you? Who's going to be your captain? So 1.5 times the salary, but you get 1.5 times the points.
I think Ramos is now off the board, but there's some guys where, if you go with like Posey or even someone like Ahmed Rosario, I know his spot in the lineup is not a premium one, but he's crushed lefties the last 6 weeks. If you put them in there, like I said, you just have so much options and so much cash. Like, I think this is going to be a low-scoring game, personally. Like, I obviously like Bumgarner more than I like Syndergaard, but you could get both those pitchers in a lineup, which is usually hard to do when both guys are 5-digit salaries. So Give me a cheaper bat like Posey, like Todd Frazier, like Ahmed Rosario, and give me the flexibility.
All right, 45 seconds, slate approved picks. Who's it going to be here, Jules?
Yeah, I'm just going basic. I'm going with Christian Yelich in an opposite hand matchup in Arizona.
Garion.
I think I'm going to go with Bumgarner, actually, even on a full slate. I just really like what he's been able to do recently, and the numbers back it up.
All right, good stuff. Thanks, guys. Gary, miss having you here in person. I will be honest with you. It was good to see you, buddy. Good to spend some time with you yesterday.
I'll be back to host this show tomorrow at 6. This guy won't be, but I'll be back. You should still tune in. Yeah, so see you tomorrow at 6 for this
Friday. Go enjoy your Friday.
Jessie, no watching.